We have this story from Axios, and actually we were going to lead with the Elon Musk stuff promoting what is woman. It's massive. 100 million views or whatever. And then I can't remember who, I think, was it you or someone mentioned that
I mentioned it, yeah.
This story, Axios says YouTube reverses misinformation policy to allow U.S. election denialism. And they say the company's confirmed in a reversal of its election integrity policy, YouTube will leave up content that says fraud, errors, or glitches occurred in the 2020 presidential election and other U.S. elections, the company confirmed to Axios on Friday. The election was stolen from Richard Nixon in the 60s when...
Ooh, you think Mayor Daley?
And Hillary Clinton.
Mayor Daley? Yeah. No, but we started talking about this, and then as soon as we brought it up, Seamus started doing Gollum as Trump saying, they stole it from us!
So take it from us! My precious.
My precious! So there you go. I couldn't believe it, but there's a very obvious reason why they're doing this. Donald Trump is likely going to win in 2024. In 2025, he will be inaugurated. They're going to lose their minds. The far left is going to rampage through D.C. and set fires and burn things down like they always do. And then the Democrats are going to come out and they're going to be like, it was stolen from us. Trump's working for Russia or insert whatever country.
They takes it.
They takes it. You know, Hillary Clinton's going to be old and scraggly and be like, they stole it from us. Yeah,
oh my goodness.
Trying to do Lady Gollum on the fly. I have to practice it.
Lady Gollum's a tough one, man.
This new change in policy doesn't change anything for me because I get the feeling that computers were tallying votes 51-49 in private and not telling us and lying, but I have no proof. I've never claimed that it is happening. I just sense the burden of proof is on the person that's tallying the votes, in my opinion.
Ian's jumping right into it. He's like, we can talk about it again.
Yes.
we had Steve Bannon on, and Steve Bannon talked about it. Mm-hmm. And you know, some people are like, aha, now that Axios confirms the policy's gone, Tim's going to finally admit, no, dude, you guys, no. Like, I've never been afraid. I have never held back. I genuinely think they won by changing the rules, by ballot harvesting, by ballot chasing, by lax signature verification. You can call it fraud. I get it. You can say it was stolen. You can say it was rigged and all that stuff. But it doesn't get to the real cause. And here's the problem I always had with it. Right after the election, when Trump is like, it was stolen, it was rigged, there's videos of people in Georgia being like, I'm not voting. Why? What's the point? Mm-hmm. And then you lose Georgia to the Democrats and give the Democrats the Senate because people were just like, it's stolen, it's impossible, and they give up.
Yeah, the narrative is very harmful to the actual solutions, too. I was very happy to see Turning Point Action partnering with Scott Presler now, though. They pledged $5 million for ballot harvesting efforts in collaboration with Scott Presler. This man who's done so much, he's finally going to get paid, hopefully. And
I'll read, we say the super chats, but this is a good one. Kyle Miller says, YouTube reversing the election rule could be so that there are videos to demoralize the right to not vote in 2024.
Oh, interesting.
Completely agree. Mm-hmm. So right now it's already demoralizing that we know they're doing vote in the park, ballot harvesting, that universal mail-in voting was unconstitutional in Pennsylvania for a period. And then the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania ruled that it was allowed, which I still think is ridiculous because their constitution actually says you can't do this. It changed a few words and then they made it legal. Then they did ballot harvesting. If you just say that it was stolen and you can't win, people give up. If you say, hey, if you do what they did, you'll actually win. So here's what I think. I actually think there's no way they can win in 2024 as of right now, pending any variable changes. I think if the election were to happen today, the Republicans would win. However, we'll see what happens. You know, just wait a few years. The left will clip that one thing and rip out the other context of me saying as of right now. My point is, the Republicans have heavily learned. Ron DeSantis and Trump have both said they're going to ballot harvest. Right. You add on the economy, the war. The war's bad for Biden. Biden is screwing things up. When Afghanistan happened, the surrender, his approval rating flipped. It was all of a sudden Biden was causing problems. They don't have anyone.
Yeah,
they don't. And if the best they can, RFK Jr., who's actually polling pretty decently, but he is very anti the establishment Democrats.
I think a lot of Republicans would vote for RFK as well, but they're not going to for a very shallow reason. I think he's got a serious disadvantage because of his voice, which sounds very shallow, but I think if he had the same ideas and he was in a different body, he would perform much better.
Yeah, the voice is a big part of it.
It's like a reverse JFK Nixon.
It's a talking job, so that's a good point.
Of all the presidential announcements that I've heard so far from DeSantis and Trump, I mean, Trump's presser was pretty lackluster too. If you listen to RFK's, because I listened to his entire, like it was 75, 90 minutes on Twitter Spaces, and it was phenomenal. It was really, really good. So yes, I agree with you that like there will be superficial analysis that says, I can't, like, what's up with this dude's voice? But if you actually listen to the content of his words, it's incredible.
There's
also
one
to
of
be
the best
fair,
candidates.
to be fair, even though he does say some good things, like he's still a Democrat, he's still on the left, he's not a social conservative. So like as a conservative, I would not vote for him.
course,
I think
I
Trump
would have.
is...
Now here's the thing: if our election was like RFK versus Trump, I think our country would be in a better position, right? So I think the Democrats are horrible. He's certainly less horrible than the rest of them. I prefer his positions to theirs. So yeah, I think he would be a step in the right direction for the Democratic Party, but they don't want the right direction, and that's why they're in the Democratic Party.
I think Trump is very much like liberal. I don't think left, right. I don't know if those terms
No, it's
really.
fair.
I mean, and
Yeah.
he just ran as a Republican because he's like, I got a better chance in there than going with the DNC deciding who's going to be the candidate.
Yeah.
But do you think so? Like, is the same thing with RFK? Because I don't think of him as like. I mean, he could easily be a Republican. I wouldn't know the difference.
Interesting. So I hear what you're saying about Trump. You're absolutely correct that Trump is like not the most conservative or right-wing politician in America. Far from it, even though he's been maligned by the media as just being this far-right fascist type. I like him as far as the other candidates go. There's a couple comments he's made on abortion, especially recently, that have been kind of disheartening for me. But look, I mean, he appointed the judges that ended up overturning Roe v. Wade. Like we can attribute a good amount of that victory to Donald Trump. So
I also
even
think
though he's not perfect, I do still like him a lot. But you're right. It is a little bit strange to adopt that vernacular and call Trump like a right winger or a conservative because his positions really aren't that conservative as compared to what we would consider to be conservative like 10 years ago. Right? He's like a New York Democrat in a lot of ways.
I think he's being very strategic on the abortion issue, though, because you do have to get over the affluent suburban moms and females, especially in swing states like Pennsylvania. I think he's being very strategic about that. President Trump was one of the most pro-life presidents we ever had, undoubtedly. So I think his rhetoric around it is very deliberate because it is going to be an obstacle in those affluent suburban areas if you're going hard on abortion. And you can't really be in politics without playing politics.
It's
We-
possible.
we-
I still don't know if it's justified or I agree with it, but I do agree with you that could be his strategy. Maybe it's an attempt, but maybe it's what he believes. I don't know.
7 minutes ago, we were all laughing and pouring wine, and we're talking about abortion.
Yeah. Well, look, no,
like,
because
oh,
we're
man.
just pointing out some of the substantive differences between the parties
kidding.
too. Yeah. But
Friday
I don't know. Tim, what do you think of RFK overall?
Oh, I like him. I would never vote for a Democrat. I mean,
Really?
without any major reform, it's just not.
What about Vivek
I'm-
Ramaswamy?
As a Democrat?
Well, no, I just mean in general.
Oh, I like him. He's great.
Throwing
Fantastic.
my hat in the ring.
The problem is, in 2018, I'm seeing these Democrats. You have people like Jeff Andrew. He switches parties. Those are good things. And I was thinking to myself, like, you could support a Tulsi Gabbard, or at the time, I liked Andrew Yang, but I think he's just trying too hard to pony up and pander. And I'm thinking, if we get someone like Tulsi in, we can, push the Democratic Party away from the neoliberal establishment stuff. And then what ends up happening? When these Democrats get in, we saw this in 2018. So this is before Jeff Andrew, but when these Democrats get in and they're all campaigning saying, we're going to be moderates, we're going to fight for kitchen table issues. Then they get elected and they drop to their knees in front of Nancy Pelosi and go, I will do whatever you say. And then she impeach Trump and they go, yes, my lord. And I'm like, what was the point of voting for these people? All they did was give their vote to Pelosi for stupid nonsense.
Yeah.
They didn't fix any of these problems. They didn't help the economy. They just went nuts and said Trump is bad. So, nah. RFK can do whatever he wants. I think he's a good dude, whatever. I'm not voting for a Democrat because if you get him in, all he does is empower the Democratic establishment. Joe Manchin, for example, he needs to be voted out of West Virginia. He should have switched parties a long time ago and said, I'm getting away from this stuff. It's nuts. Instead, he empowers them and they complain he doesn't give them enough.
Although
Sinema left the party. Good for her.
I
Trump-
think we need them all to leave. We need to just do a total turnover and say, guess what? If you've been in office, you're not allowed to come back. We're just going to start fresh.
Sounds good.
when
We're
Trump
just
got
gonna
in,
start fresh.
it sort of splintered the Republican Party when Trump came in because
Oh,
he
yeah.
wasn't really a Republican.
big time.
And now we've got the Freedom Caucus. So RFK could splinter the Democratic Party in a similar
I would say that
fashion.
Trump splintered the Republican Party because the party wasn't Republican.
That's also true.
When
right?
he entered, those were like neoconservative, big state or big government guys. So I'm glad that he messed it up. And to do a little bit of pushback on the RFK talk, I think that there is no living politician, or American for that matter, that has more impetus and imperative to try and abolish and just shatter the FBI and the CIA. So for that reason alone, as an anti-war, hardcore libertarian, I love that guy.
And what was
But I
his
have a question.
voice?
Do you not think Trump has as much of a motivation to try to shut those agencies down?
I don't think so. No.
Really?
I don't.
Okay. Why not?
Because he hasn't. When he had the opportunity to provide evidence of what they have done to him, he has fallen short time and time again. Whereas RFK, when he does interviews and he talks about how his father was assassinated, it's really powerful.
Uncle, I think he means.
Both his father and his uncle.
Oh, right. You're right.
Robert
yes.
Kennedy,
Oh,
Bobby.
oh.
You're right.
Bobby was going after the mob pretty hard
God,
before he got killed.
I was thinking JFK, despite RFK as well.
Dude, Bobby Kennedy,
his
unsung
dad
hero.
and his uncle, and he actually did an interview with Mike Tyson where he lays out. I mean, this guy is like an encyclopedia of knowledge, and he's got the entire case. He's like, I know the name of the man who's responsible for assassinating my father.
No.
Wow.
Yeah. I swear to you, like you guys
Wow.
check it out. The guy's he's incredible, and he's also willing to have really uncomfortable, hard conversations that are totally anathema within the Democratic Party. He would be, even if I don't necessarily think he can win because he is running on abolishing the FBI, he would be such a huge quantum leap in dialogue amongst the amongst the Democrats in this country. So please do as well as you can, RFK.
Well, the Democrats, it's so funny because they detested the FBI until 2016 when they all began worshiping it. And you think like somebody anti-FBI, someone who was against the deep state probably could have had some success within the Democratic Party until more recently.
True.
Even if the party establishment didn't like them, the voters would have been much more open to that person.
That's the whole Russian
Now-
collusion case.
Exactly. And so with RFK versus Trump, I guess I would say just from a strategic standpoint, part of where it's muddy for me is I think you're right that makes it a bit more personal than what happened to Trump. Then on the other hand, Trump would only have one term and not be concerned about re-election. Now, I think you could say RFK, having gone through that and firmly believing that these agencies are responsible for 2 deaths in his family, okay, maybe he doesn't care about a second term. That's possible.
You see what Trump
but-
said? No, finish the thought. I don't want
No. I just think that's like again. I still prefer Trump, but from a strategic standpoint, I think that's an interesting argument.
He said, we don't need 8 years, we need 5 months to make America.
I love
Because
it.
he's like, I am going to
That's
fire
smart.
all of these
That's
people.
smart.
It is going to be a
If he's
hammer.
for real, then God
And
bless. Let's go.
there's a shift happening on both sides against all of these 3-letter agencies, including the CIA, the FBI. You saw Jack Dorsey coming out and saying, splinter them into 1 million pieces, dissolve them all, which is incredible. And I think, especially Jack Dorsey being removed from the pit of Twitter and everything that he had to deal with, all of these requests he had to deal with, I think there's a shift in the way most of the public is viewing these weaponized 3-letter agencies.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange because people have always been very selective about this. The FBI, the CIA, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, any of these organizations that admit to things like, Operation Northwoods or MK Ultra openly that the public know of, people will still turn around and say, okay, they used to be like that, but they're not like that anymore.
It's ridiculous.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
That we know these things happen and we're still like,
And it's not just that. It's not just that these things happen and others claiming they don't happen anymore. It's like there's other very obvious shenanigans, to put a light term on it, happening before our eyes. Like, for example, everything we learned through the Durham report and everything anyone who was
you.
observant knew before the Durham report came out about the obvious political bias and total incompetence at best that occurred.
Yep.
And we're supposed to give them the benefit of the doubt and say this wasn't an attempt at a coup. They were trying their best, but they just happened to have some bad eggs who were politically motivated, but weren't even in and of themselves trying to subvert the democratic process. Why would you give them that benefit of the doubt given the history of these 3-letter agencies?
I
That
don't
should be
know.
Trump's new
Yeah.
slogan, no more shenanigans.
No I love-
shenanigans.
I love
Well,
that
No
meme.
more
Joe Biden
shenanigans.
was no
I love that.
malarkey, right?
I love that meme where it's like, yes, we know the CIA did bad things in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and there's been no meaningful reform or change or accountability, but now everything's good.
Exactly.
This time it's different.
Well, what drives me crazy though is that this should be a bipartisan issue. Like you have Martin Luther King Jr. for God's sakes, and the Democrats are now running cover for the FBI. Like, what are you guys doing? Have you
And
forgotten your
leftist
legacy?
activists say, we don't like the Democrats, but we march behind them.
Right.
Well, exactly, because they know that the Democratic Party is very useful to them right now. So it doesn't matter what the facts say. What matters is what's politically expedient in the moment. So they'll always simp for the establishment.
But I'll say this. They say, yeah, you say that you're not conservative, you're voting for Trump. And I'm like, Trump is an insurgent, like Bernie was an insurgent. And Trump is trying to do away with these institutions, with the intelligence agencies, the bureaucracy, the deep state. Not perfectly. He didn't do that great in his first term, probably because he thought, I'll get a second term and then I'll really kick butt. I also think now he wants revenge. But there's a big difference between Trump and the Democratic Party, which is the machine establishment, the three-letter agencies, and the neocons who rushed over there because of Trump's emergence in the Republican Party.
True.
I'll also throw this out there. I wonder how much of an insurgent Bernie Sanders ever really is or was, because he's caved into the Democratic establishment every single time. I remember, my brother was looking at Bernie Sanders. He was a little interested in him in his policies back in 2015, 2016. And I remember saying, I have a bad feeling about him, man. I don't like his politics, but as far as dissidents go, I think he's going to cave. And then boom, he ends up endorsing Hillary as soon as he's going to get the nomination. It's like, you're claiming this system is corrupt, and Hillary's part of one of the most horrific machines that's ever existed in political history, and she takes advantage of the poor, and she starts war and does all these evil things, and you're going to endorse her? Really?
It was what happened was Bernie was sitting down with his mentor, Hillary Clinton, and she said, there are ways to retain your third house. There are ways to do it that the actual leftists would not tell you. And then when it came down to it, and the left was like, Hillary Clinton must be stopped. She's evil. Bernie goes, no, I need her. And then, Hillary shot force lightning at the true leftist leaders. And then Bernie fell to his knees and said, I will do whatever you say, Hillary. Don't take my house. Please leave me alone.
So with Hillary, and this is always what's so hilarious about the apologetics they'll engage in for people like this. Bernie Sanders has 3 homes, and they have all sorts of excuses for it. Okay, if a retired couple who saved their entire lives to get 2 extra homes, rent those homes out for their rental income, so they have 3 houses, rent 2 of them out so people can use them productively and occupy them and support them in their retirement, that's evil. They're scumbag landlords. If Bernie Sanders has 3 houses and just keeps 2 of them empty, it's okay. He's a great guy.
Right. Despite the homeless crisis all over the place, his 2 empty homes are totally fine, because if you want to make $1 million, we should write a best-selling book.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they all
just
do.
write a best-selling book. Well, hold on. What about the people who worked for the logging company that cut those trees down? What about the people who turned that wood into paper? What about the people who printed it? Shouldn't they all get a proportional cut of the profits of that book? Isn't profit theft?
Can we just
Why does Bernie get all the money? He just wrote the ideas. He didn't print the thing. He didn't put it in the stores.
And he probably didn't write a lot of the ideas.
Yeah, it's also
someone
true.
else did a lot of the work. But I just love that once he made $1 million, he stopped saying the millionaires.
Yeah.
He used to say the millionaires and the billionaires in this
Really?
country. Yes.
That's a fact.
Then when you look you can see that the moment he became on his, I think it was his financial disclosure for Congress, for the Senate, he makes $1 million. Then he starts saying the billionaires in this country. Dude, well, that was more Trump than Bernie.
This greedy man couldn't just give away enough of his net worth to have $999,000 worth of either dollars or net worth equivalent. Like, he had to hold on to whatever he has above $1 million, right? And still call himself a socialist. So he's like, oh, just stop saying millionaire.
Yeah, but
it's like, you could have had $900,000. It's still
like,
a good net worth, dude.
You can tell the crowd there's a difference between someone with $1 million and someone with $999 million. You know what I mean? Like, he just stopped saying it. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
I think either way, either he loved Hillary or he hated Trump. But I think it was he was afraid of Donald Trump so much that he was willing to bend the knee.
I
think he's under my
I think
I don't think so. I think he was scared of Hillary Clinton.
I think he's closer politically to Trump than he is to Hillary
yes,
Clinton.
for sure. They were.
But he would say stuff like, Trump is an existential threat to the world, and I need to make sure
But
that he
that's
doesn't
because
get
he was
elected.
told
That
to
was
say that.
Hillary's
want to keep
points.
$1 million houses.
Exactly. And if you'll do whatever the political establishment tells you, you're not very close to Trump.
Well, you're certainly not a revolutionary at that point, which his
endorsed
support
Hillary.
thought.
It's true.
Yeah, that was brutal. That bird landed on his podium. Like, that's not an accident. While he was giving that speech, do you remember that?
I do.
He was talking from the heart, like he was, and then the bird landed on it, and he was like, it was like a Gandhi moment. Like the guy, for sure.
Clearly it wasn't.
But it was like his heart was in the right place, but his brain wasn't.
And then you had Mike Pence who had
No,
a
no,
fly
no.
land on his face.
It wasn't his heart. It wasn't his heart or his brain. It was his balls.
His gut, his
They
nuts were in the
sucked
right
up,
spot.
and he went, I'm so scared of the Democratic establishment.
My heart is in the right place,
I will
but my
do whatever
balls
you
are
say."
not.
That's right.
That's hilarious.
change.
That's hilarious.
I believe in it, but my balls are too small. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.